They forced an emergency landing on a flight over the Atlantic Ocean. 200 passengers sat frozen in their seats, while armed agents stormed through the cabin. But this was not about terrorism. This was not about hijacking. This was about one man who was never supposed to walk off that plane alive. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. And please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Marcus Chen was a data analyst. He lived a quiet life in Boston. He worked for a pharmaceutical company called Helix Industries. Every morning he took the subway to work. Every evening he returned home to his small apartment. He had no family. He had few friends. He was invisible to most people, and that invisibility had always felt safe, until it became the very thing that nearly killed him. On a Tuesday morning in March, Marcus arrived at his office like he did every other day. He made himself a cup of tea and settled at his desk. His computer screen glowed in the dim light of his cubicle. He was assigned to analyze clinical trial data for a new medication. The drug was called It was supposed to treat a rare blood disorder. The company was weeks away from submitting it for approval. Billions of dollars were riding on this drug. Marcus opened the data files and began his routine analysis. He cross-referenced numbers. He checked consistency across test groups. He looked for patterns. And then he saw something that made his blood run cold. The mortality rates in the control group and the treatment group were nearly identical. But the reports being prepared for submission showed something completely different. The numbers had been altered. Patients who had died during the trial were missing from the official documentation. Adverse effects had been downplayed or erased entirely. Marcus sat back in his chair. His hands were shaking. He knew what this meant. If Veridex went to market with falsified data, people would die. Thousands of people would take a medication thinking it would save them. Instead, it would do nothing. Or worse, it would harm them. He printed the original data files. He saved copies to an encrypted drive. He knew he had to report this, but he also knew what happened to whistleblowers. He had read the stories. People who spoke up lost their jobs. They lost their reputations. Some lost everything. For 3 days, Marcus did not sleep. He went to work. He pretended everything was normal, but inside he was terrified. On Friday afternoon, he made his decision. He contacted a journalist named Sarah Reeves. She worked for a major newspaper and had covered corporate fraud before. He sent her the encrypted files. He explained what he had found. Sarah told him she would need time to verify everything. She told him to be careful. She told him not to tell anyone else. That night, Marcus went home. He locked his door. He closed his curtains. He felt like he was being watched. He told himself he was being paranoid. But the feeling would not go away. On Monday morning, he arrived at work and found his office access had been revoked. His manager told him there was a problem with his security clearance. He was told to wait in a conference room. 2 men in suits arrived. They said they were from internal compliance. They asked him about his work. They asked him if he had shared any company data with outside parties. Marcus denied everything, but he could see they did not believe him. They let him go that afternoon. They told him he was being placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. Marcus knew what this meant. They knew. Somehow they knew what he had done. He called Sarah Reeves from a payphone. She told him her editors were reviewing the story. She told him to lay low. She told him it would be published within a week. Marcus felt a small sense of relief. If the story came out, he would be protected. Whistleblowers had legal protections. He just had to survive until then. But Marcus did not know that Helix Industries had connections that reached far beyond corporate boardrooms. The company had former government officials on its board. It had relationships with intelligence contractors. And it had already decided that Marcus Chen was a problem that needed to disappear. Not publicly, not in a way that would draw attention, but quietly, permanently. And they had the perfect opportunity. Marcus had planned a trip months earlier. His company had sent him to a conference in London. The trip was scheduled for that Wednesday. He considered cancelling, but his manager called and insisted he still go. They told him the administrative leave would not start until he returned. They told him the company had already paid for everything. Marcus thought this was strange, but he was exhausted. He was not thinking clearly. He agreed to go. On Wednesday morning, Marcus boarded the flight. It was a large aircraft with over 200 passengers. He found his seat in the economy section. He put his bag in the overhead compartment. He sat down by the window. The plane filled up quickly. A woman sat beside him. She smiled politely. He smiled back. The flight attendants went through their safety demonstration. The engines roared to life. The plane taxied down the runway. And then they were in the air. For the first 2 hours, everything seemed normal. Marcus tried to sleep, but could not. His mind kept racing. He thought about the data. He thought about the people who would be harmed if Veridex went to market. He thought about Sarah Reeves and whether the story would actually be published. He ordered a coffee from the flight attendant. He drank it slowly, and then he started to feel strange. His vision became blurry. His heart began to race. He felt dizzy. He thought maybe it was anxiety. He had been under so much stress. But then his chest tightened. He could not catch his breath. He tried to stand, but his legs would not support him. The woman beside him asked if he was okay. He tried to speak, but no words came out. And then everything went dark. Marcus woke up on the floor of the aircraft. The flight attendants were standing over him. Passengers were staring. Someone was holding an oxygen mask to his face. He could hear voices, but they sounded distant. A man who identified himself as a doctor was checking his pulse. The doctor looked worried. He told the flight attendants that Marcus needed immediate medical attention. He said they needed to land the plane. The head flight attendant nodded and rushed to the cockpit. But then something strange happened. Another passenger stood up. He was wearing a business suit. He showed the flight attendants a badge. He said he was a federal air marshal. He said there was no need to divert the flight. He said Marcus was fine. He said Marcus had just had a panic attack. The doctor protested. He said Marcus was showing signs of a cardiac event. He said this was serious. But the air marshal insisted. He said diverting the flight would create unnecessary panic. He said they should continue to London, where Marcus could receive proper care. The flight attendants looked uncertain. The air marshal was adamant. He had authority on the aircraft. They made the decision to continue. Marcus was moved to a row of empty seats at the back of the plane. The doctor stayed with him. The air marshal stayed nearby. Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness. He felt like he was dying. And deep down, he knew this was not an accident. Someone had poisoned him. Someone on this plane wanted him dead. The doctor kept checking Marcus's vital signs. He gave him aspirin. He kept him hydrated. But Marcus' condition was not improving. After another hour, the doctor demanded they land. He told the flight crew that Marcus would not survive the full flight. He said if they did not divert immediately, Marcus would die. This time, the flight crew agreed. The captain announced they would be making an emergency landing in Newfoundland, but the air marshal stood up again. He said this was unnecessary. He said Marcus was stable. The doctor shouted that Marcus was not stable. Other passengers began to get involved. Some supported the doctor. Some believed the air marshal. The situation was escalating. And then another passenger stood up. She was a woman in her 50s. She said she was a nurse. She examined Marcus. She agreed with the doctor. She said Marcus needed emergency care immediately. The captain made the final decision. They would land in Newfoundland. The air marshal tried to protest, but the captain overruled him. The plane began its descent. Emergency services were notified. Within 30 minutes, they were on the ground. Paramedics boarded the aircraft. They rushed to Marcus. They checked his vitals. They loaded him onto a stretcher. And as they were taking him off the plane, Marcus saw something that confirmed his worst fear. The air marshal was on his phone. He was speaking in hushed tones, and he looked furious. Marcus was taken to a hospital in St. John's. The doctors ran tests. They found traces of a rare compound in his bloodstream. It was a synthetic toxin. It was designed to mimic a heart attack. It was the kind of substance that required sophisticated knowledge to produce. The kind of substance used by intelligence agencies. The doctors told Marcus he was lucky to be alive. If the plane had not landed when it did, he would have died. But Marcus knew he was not safe. Whoever had tried to kill him would try again. He called Sarah Reeves from the hospital. He told her everything. She told him the story was going live the next morning. She told him to contact the authorities. She told him to get protection. Marcus called the police. He told them he had been poisoned. He told them about the falsified data. He told them about Helix Industries. The police contacted federal authorities. An investigation was launched. The story broke the next day. Sarah Reeves published everything. The falsified clinical trials, the altered data, the patients who had died, the attempts to silence Marcus. The story went viral. News outlets around the world picked it up. Helix Industries' stock collapsed. Executives were questioned. The air marshal was identified as a private contractor with ties to the company. He was arrested. The toxin in Marcus's coffee was traced back to a flight attendant who had been bribed. Veridex was pulled from consideration. The company faced criminal charges. Marcus was placed in protective custody. He testified before Congress. He told them everything. Reforms were passed. New protections for whistleblowers were established. And Marcus became a symbol of the ordinary person who risked everything to do what was right. But the cost was high. Marcus could never return to his old life. He lived under a different name now. He moved to a different city. He worked in a different field. He had survived, but he had lost his anonymity. He had lost his peace, and he carried the weight of knowing that powerful people had tried to erase him from existence simply because he had told the truth. Years later, Marcus gave an interview. He was asked if he regretted what he had done. He said no. He said the people who would have been harmed by Veridex deserved someone to stand up for them. He said silence in the face of injustice was its own kind of poison. He said he would do it again. because some things are worth fighting for, even if the fight costs you everything. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this.